you just joined us, come to the front, take a seat. And also what I was requesting everyone to have is make sure that you have at least, it could be from your phone, maybe your director's sketch or something, some kind of a sketch, a manual sketch, and also minimally 3 renderings of photographs of your team's projects, those that will describe your team's kind of design work. So they are like, not like close-in view of a detail, but like hero shots of the street view or something. We're going to learn how to use some AI steps to create a description that will help us to create images that is similar to that kind of style. My name is Friven, for those of you who don't know me, but one of the rationale for this AI session, it is not because I'm a tech guru, but more because if you know me, I advocate and I'm talking about well-being design. I'm talking about both how to design well-being in your projects and also well-being of you as an individual, right? Because that's the kind of things that matter that will then allow you to output good stuff. But the logic of why technology then becomes relevant is if you can use technology very cleverly, you can actually save time. Of course, in today's world, you got no time. If you can save time, there is a glimmer of hope that you can dedicate a bit of time for yourself and things and people you love and it's important to you. And in a positive cycle, that then means that you can produce better work. If you are a happy person, you can produce better work. So technology has evolved design workflow. When I started to play with AI technology, I invested some time to think of, so how can I craft something that is really useful in real life terms, right? In operation terms for design workflow. I look at typically how we in practice, we typically design. And I know that design is a big word, but I'm narrowing down to the process of how we produce conceptual architectural design. Let's say in the scenario of you're doing a design pitch or competition or some kind of feasibility. So basically you're trying to produce work that has got depth. But at that stage, how many meters, what's the tolerance is not so important. In fact, even like exact is not so important because in the first place, you got to get the job and win the commission first, right? And that usually involves careful planning, that involves real technical design ideas, but also involves a lot of imaging and visual communications. Fair to say? Because you can have the best stuff, but if you don't catch the attention of the client group's top boss, difficult to win. Fair? Okay, so there are 3 steps. And those of you who know me, for example, even when I was in Singapore, I was running teams in Savannah, but when we were in London, if we are doing a design task, this early stage, we will have typically 3 stages. We will have a stage called ideation where we're like, oh, let's not constrain ourselves. What are the interesting ideas? Then we have, let's pick the right things and make sure that it can come together. Then there is an important stage of we better make sure we can show it and make it nice to tell the story, right? Because, and I would say each of these 3 steps are equally important. If we have 6 weeks, I would have tasked the team. What we will do is we'll do 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. More often than not, unfortunately, sometimes we run out of time, then the last one is the last 48 hours. A bit sad, but because packaging is so important as well, right? But equally is everything else. But at the same time, you realize that each of these steps, there must be some shortcuts. But in the pre-AI days, it's hello, shortcut, maybe copy and paste. That could be a shortcut. Borrow something that you have used before and adapt. But now we could do some other things. So I'm bringing to you some ideas. I have my own different comparisons of what are the pros and cons. As every single tool will have certain things that is stronger, certain things because they didn't program it for their market. So it's not so important to them. Different tools has got different tricks. So today, I will blend in a little bit of comparison with Midjourney, but I'm using a bit of Sora. I'm using a little bit of Kling. We'll also cover a little bit of maybe LumaFusion's Dream Machine. I can play with it, but at least I know I could do it like that, okay? It's not a theory. I'm not passing you theory. It's like real That's why I'm asking you to really prepare some stuff. So our demo today, we will be using a bit of Sora, a bit of Midjourney. Imagine what tends to happen, right? So where it goes and meet the client, and then what they are looking for is something like this. Because you have the first contact and you've spoken to the key representatives, so you are the best person to have the most clued information plus a bit of understanding this kind of the budget or the how much area. It could be something like this in this context. So perhaps there will be a quick sketch, something like this. We could do something like this, but we also want to be adventurous. Maybe this could make it something unique. And from this, the challenge is the director who is able to get this insight might be in a different country, and then you got time zone. But even if there's no time zone, you're talking to a team through Teams or Zoom, you can only describe in words, right? So I would say, hands up if you disagree, I would say it's very normal that in the ideation stage, when the director has an idea, a napkin sketch, then there is I'll be back in the office in 2 days. You guys see what you can brainstorm, go and collect. This is what I think is a rough idea of mine, the director says. Then when we come back in 2 days, we'll have a look so that we will discuss and do the ideation process, right? So it will be better, I dare say, that if the director has certain tools at hand, very easy, right? That the director can say, these are my ideas. That's a quick scribble. And then he has certain tools, not that then it becomes a final product, but get the sketch to become examples of maybe it's something like this, maybe it's something like this, maybe it's something like this. So maybe from that sketch, the person who is driving the design process could generate just 3 sketches. We're not deciding yet, but this is my loose sketch. But what I mean is like this, because in a sketch you're not going to paste in materiality, ideas of is it metallic, does it want to feel like masonry or something. So you want to add another layer of almost like taking a sketch and doing a bit of photoshopping, because that will help to get the team who then has to produce the work to okay, we make less guesses and then we can value add. Does it make sense? Does it make sense so far? Okay, so let's go back a little bit about understanding. So you see, let's say, I don't know whether any one of you are from this era. Some of us are, 1988, Apple II computer. Then of course, you got firstly, we had the Macintosh, 1984, we have iPhone. And then we know that there will come a time where anything that can be done and requires accuracy can be done by a machine. You can see that, right? And of course, what happens is that actually creates 2 kind of feelings for people like us who are in the design, especially architectural industry. One of them is sense of denial. Surely cannot replace one. It cannot be, we take so long, whatever, whatever. I continue to do, I'm doing as best as I can, I'll be okay. They're not so keen on what's going on. Or they could be very scared. Because whilst they say that to themselves, but like, shucks, I don't have that flair and it doesn't seem quite difficult. I don't even have the time to play with it. But then there's another group who's, okay, I learned what I can. As with everything, I can't memorize the encyclopedia. But if every night I flip 1 or 2 pages and see some, that's interesting, I read a little bit of it. Every night I will take it a little bit at a time. After a year, you'll be better off than day 0, I would think, right? When I used to learn the fire code, I sit on the bus every day. I just do one small thing. Slowly it accumulates, right? So I would like to encourage everyone to have that kind of mindset and that kind of spirit. I will show you later that there are different ways that the different tools does things. And overall, all of them are able to do everything. But in the context of what I am presenting to you today, to inject some AI steps into the workflow that I'm describing, I found that some tools are easier. Let me just describe. Say, okay, how many of you are experts in Photoshop? Skill level of 1 to 10. Anyone who's an 8? and above. You know that, for example, every one of us know that Photoshop can do anything. You can even create something that looks really by doing the step-by-step, like painting a picture. And there are so many things you can do. But then the question is about entry level, right? There are some tools which are more intuitive and you can play with it, doesn't punish you so much for errors. And some tools have to be very precise. Let's just say between SketchUp and Revit. It's a different way of getting into it because it has certain nuances in how it approaches the problem. So I will show you. So for example, we can bring that sketch that you saw, which is literally, I did that sketch in like maybe 10 to 15 minutes on the iPad, right? Just, I have an image in my mind and I thought, and then as I went, it'd be quite cool if I do this. From that sketch to a clip like this, I want to qualify a little bit so that you don't misunderstand what I mean. To a clip like this, right? Just the 5-second clip, which if you agree that the clip, assuming that the clip is showing something that I had in my mind when I did the sketch. In fact, when I did the sketch, there is only so much because you don't have to draw everything. But as you work on it, it's yeah, something like this, correct? That's how design process works, right? So hands up if you agree that if you are the team and you get something like the video below, you will have a more accurate idea of what the design direction is meant to go. Do you agree? So if I am trying to pass to you the information and I show you the sketch plus examples of what is below, doesn't have to be the video version, then the direction is a little bit clearer. Yeah? So we're going to do this, right? We're going to do, for today's session, that's all the theory part, okay? So for today's exercise, we're going to do steps A, B, and C. Very simple, very down to earth, very real. A is within each studio, under a certain director or a certain category of clients, I am sure your studio or your team generally have design output of a certain, for lack of a better word, design language or style. Correct? Agree? Do you agree? Yeah? We are not in the era of, this is like a must be like Zaha Hadid or Rem Koolhaas, but generally there's a certain style, right? A broad style. So that is what we will call, use the terminology of the team design library. Okay? The second item is the first C idea, which is that first, like the sketch, okay? And then part C, if we have time, is how do you take something that is a static image and you can optimize it so that in the final stage, you can perhaps, and you got, it's 11 o'clock at night. Tomorrow 9 o'clock is the thing. And it feels like maybe we need to have a few bits to make it a little bit more exciting so that you could create something like this, yeah? Or something like this, okay? So let me make it a little bit bigger so that you can appreciate what I mean. Let's say something like this. It's 11 o'clock the night before already, or you have already pumped out the design work. It's 11 o'clock and okay, maybe we do something so that at least when we close the presentation, it's a bit cheerful. Believe it or not, this one, 3 days ago, I took my sketch and I did some things, and then I had a few images. I chose one that I quite like, but it wasn't, to be fair, it wasn't exactly the same as my sketch, assuming that we discussed and it became that. And then I took a static image and then moved the camera a little bit and changed the lighting to night. Yeah. And after giving the instruction, the important thing is you who come up with the idea of how do you want to tell the story. But after you decide how you want to tell story, then you test, get the AI to output. Then you choose between this one is nicer, I use this one. Believe it or not, this was my finalist competition entry for the School of Science and Technology. And what I did when I was playing with AI was, I took a rendering I took a rendering. And at that time, this rendering, one rendering was about $8,000. I took that one rendering, I pasted that rendering and said, use this rendering and create a video. I want the camera to move into the sky like an aerial view. And from one static image, no story description. There were a few versions and I chose this one, which was nicer. So the amazing thing is, and you know what? This was in April. This was in April when I played with that. And actually today, by the time end July, August, when I start, this is like, many of them can do for T. That's how fast things move. But what does that mean? It means that it's very important for us when we are working as designers to embrace and really know and play. Because you blink your eye, the next moment, you don't even know how people can do it. Because there's been so many steps that you missed. So it's not to give yourself the pressure, but it's to inject and stimulate a pleasure of wanting to experiment and lifelong learning. You want to keep abreast of what's going on because technology moves so fast. Continuing on, what we will do now, on your phone, go to AIfordesignleaders.com. It's literally what it says on the tin, AIfordesignleaders.com, okay? So you will see the 1, 2, 3 interface. Today, we are going to use this and then to generate some information, but we're going to take the information that is generated from here to play in this space. Yeah? Okay. Now, let's start.